continuously. So again, welcome to week 1 of marine biology. We are going to go ahead and get started. We are going to get started by looking at a PowerPoint called Making Observation. A quick reminder, just in case you're not quite sure how to navigate around Jigsaw yet, if you have a question you would like to ask me, go ahead and make sure that you type it in the text chat. You can get a hold of me that way, or you can go ahead and raise your hand. Your name will then blink on my screen and I'll know you are trying to get my attention. Okay? And we also will use the whiteboard to write on at various points in the class. Science is all about observing things and looking around. We're going to do a quick little introduction to observations before we go ahead and jump right into our marine biology topic for the day. So, observations, we observe things using our 5 senses. If we are looking at a picture, like you were looking at the seahorses, basically the only sense you can observe with is your sense of sight. However, if you were sitting in your room and I asked you to make some observations about your room, you can use all of your 5 senses. So let's take a look at what we can use to make observations. Our eyes. With our eyes, we can determine the color of something, the size of something, the shape of something. We can use our ears. Using our ears, we can determine if something is loud or something is soft. We can determine if something is very high-pitched or very low-pitched. And we can make some observations about sounds. We can observe things using our nose, using our sense of smell. Is something stinky? Is something sweet smelling? We can observe things using our mouth to determine if something is sweet or sour or what it tastes like. Now, something to remember in science, you should never taste anything. That's a general rule of thumb. You don't know what the chemical is all of the time. You don't know its health risks. So in this class, we are never going to taste anything that we are working with. So keep that in mind as we are going through the class. We can also use our sense of touch to determine if something is sticky, if something is hard, if something is soft. In each of us, we may have a better sense of taste, smell, sound, touch, or sight than one another. You may rely more heavily on your sense of smell than I do if you have what someone may consider a better smelling nose. But basically pictures like this one up here of the beach or the pictures you looked at before, we can only use our sense of sight. What I'd like to do now is I'd like us to do an activity that has you using all or more than just sight of your senses. So I have gone ahead and unlocked your whiteboard again. I'm erasing what we have up here. And what I would like you to do is on the whiteboard, I would like you to make 5 observations using your senses. Make sure you use at least 3 different senses, and I want these observations to be about the room you are sitting in right now. So 5 observations using your senses, at least 2 of your senses, about the room you are sitting in right now. Go ahead and write them up here on the whiteboard for me. Remember to write, you touch the block letter A, and then go ahead and touch a spot on your whiteboard, and you will go ahead and be able to write. Okay, now remember, I can't tell who's writing on the whiteboard or not, so please go ahead and put up your observations. Even if you think they may be incorrect, I really want to see what you guys have and what observations you can make about the room you're sitting in. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to finish up. If you're still typing, go ahead. I'm just going to talk a little bit as you guys are finishing up. It's great to see all of these excellent observations. I can almost close my eyes and picture where you are sitting. When you just describe something using your sense of sight, I can visualize it, but I can't really feel the room. But if I go ahead and read Braden's right here, she says she can see the trees through the windows, she can smell the scent of the candles burning, she can hear Mrs. Berg over the computer, she can smell dinner being cooked, and feel the computer that I'm typing on. I have a much better sense of the room and the area where Braden is working than if she were just to write, the walls are blue, I see my computer, I see my screen. I can kind of feel where she is. When you are making observations in science, it is best to be as descriptive as possible. I wrote mine in red. So I wrote, the walls are blue, I can smell brownies, the sun is coming in the windows, I can hear birds outside, and I can see my cats playing. Now you might think, she wrote she can see her cats playing. I wonder what that looks like. Now, if I was being a good scientist, I could write some more about that, which is what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to write my black cat that weighs about 12 pounds and my black and white cat that weighs about 8 pounds are rolling on the rug. Well, we'll put the blue rug on my floor. They are hissing and batting at each other with 2 paws. That is a much better observation of what's going on in my room than the original number 5 that says I can see my cats playing. Now I know that when my two cats play like this, chances are one of them is eventually going to hiss and run away. Sometimes it's the big cat and sometimes it's the little cat, but eventually that's what's going to happen. But now you have a picture of what my cats look like and what they might be doing. So if I go ahead and look over here at Haley's, Haley wrote, I can see maps and projects that I have made. It smells like a wet dog and the floor is a mix of wood floor and dog hair. Well, with that description, I know that, I hope that Haley has a dog, since she told me her room smells like wet dog and there's dog hair on the floor. I could add that to my description as well, that there's cat hair on my floor. So we're getting a sense of where Haley is sitting. Okay, Jamie went ahead and wrote, I see my sister working across from me and the trees in my backyard. I can hear the birds chirping. I can smell the nice fall smell of the trees and candles. Now, I don't know where any of you live. And it doesn't matter, because based on these descriptions, I can visualize the room you're sitting in. Being a good scientist means making good observations. So let's finish up with the other ones that are up here. Eric wrote, it is very quiet in here, but I can only hear the computer and Mrs. Berg. It is also very warm in here. I see the sun gleaming through the window. Great job. Someone wrote, I can see a stool and I can feel a soft rug. I can hear music and I can smell an air freshener. Victoria has over here, I am sitting with my dog. He looks happy. I see the sun coming up and I hear creaking in my house. Now, from that description, Victoria wrote she can see the sun coming up. Well, I am in Connecticut, and the sun has been up for a long time here. So I am guessing Victoria is not in Connecticut, and she is probably somewhere on the West Coast, or maybe even in Hawaii or Alaska. The room is very cold, so maybe not Hawaii, but I am warm because I have on a blanket. So just from these little descriptions, we can visualize a lot about where we are. And one of the things we can do by making observations is taking it a step farther and making something called inferences. Inferences are something that we conclude from observations. For example, Victoria wrote that the sun is just coming up. So I inferred that she is not in Connecticut like me. I truly don't know where she is, but my guess is it's not here. If we look at the picture up on the PowerPoint right now, it's a picture of a street that's flooded. An observation would be there is water on the road, the tree is green, there's a white mailbox. An inference is the road was flooded by the house. It's like kind of a connection that you make. Now in marine biology, scientists have to make connections like this often. Mostly because you're not there all the time to observe things. So enough of our general science background. Now let's get into marine biology, which is why we are here. So you should see a new presentation up on your whiteboard that says, what is marine biology? And I want to know what you guys think. If you were given a dictionary, you're charged with writing a brand new dictionary or a marine biology book. The first thing you need to tell me is, what is marine biology? Raise your hand if you want to take a guess. What is marine biology? Go ahead, Victoria. Reminder on how to talk, go ahead and click the talk button that's on the bottom of your screen.
is the study of marine life.
Okay. Victoria's definition is a good one, the study of marine life. Does anyone have anything they want to add or a different thought about what your definition could be? Go ahead and raise your hands. I'm going to give you guys a little hint. The class is much more fun if you guys talk rather than just listening to me talk the whole time. So does anyone else want to add something to Victoria's definition? Brayden, go ahead. All right, good job. She said studying the animals. Anyone else want to add anything? My definition has a few more additions to it. So let's take a look at my definition of marine biology. My definition of marine biology is it is the study of organisms in the ocean or other marine or brackish bodies of water. So there's what I would consider 3 vocabulary words in this definition. Organisms. Okay, I think both of your definitions said the animals in the ocean, and you certainly are right. We are going to look at animals, but we're going to look at plants too. Plants are an important part of the marine ecosystem, whether it be huge giant things of kelp, little small pieces of seaweed, or microscopic phytoplankton. All of that is important, all of those organisms, to marine biology. Or other marine or brackish bodies of water. Well, marine water is salt water, and a brackish body of water is a body of water that is part salt and part fresh, or a mixture of the two. Brackish bodies of water are usually found at the mouth of a river or an estuary. Marine biologists, or marine biology, includes lots of disciplines all working together. For example, you could have a marine ecologist working with a fisheries biologist. The fisheries biologist might be studying the tiny pipefish that live in the salt marshes, while the marine ecologist is studying the entire salt marsh community. Working with them, you might have a zoologist who he could be studying the snails in the marshes, anthropologist who might be studying the history of the marsh. You may have a biological oceanographer who may be studying the plankton that comes in and out of the marsh with the high tide and low tide. You may have a chemist working there as well who is studying the amount of pollutants going into the marsh. And then you could have the physical oceanographer who is studying the height of high tide and low tide and the amount of current that is brought into the marsh. So all of those different scientists working in all of those different disciplines could essentially be working on the same project. So like most sciences, marine biology is a group of different scientists working together. All scientists, including marine scientists, use something called the scientific method. Does anyone know what the scientific method is? Go ahead, Haley.
It's the method that scientists use to get an answer of a problem in science. When you find a problem.
Great job. That's a great definition. It's a method or a set of things, steps that scientists use to get an answer to a problem. In another set of words, It's a way to ask and answer questions by making observations and doing experiments. When we use the scientific method, we are going to start by asking a question. You do not have to start by asking a question, but that is where we are going to begin every time we do an experiment in this class. So we ask a question, then we are going to do some background research, and I'm going to give you a problem, an example here in a minute. We're going to construct a hypothesis. Our hypothesis is our educated guess. What do we think is going to happen? For example, one of the experiments we're going to do in this class is going to look at toothed whales and baleen whales and how they eat differently. So my hypothesis might be a toothed whale eats smaller food than a baleen whale. Then we're going to test it with an experiment, and we'll set up something. We're not going to get live whales in your houses and set them up, but we'll do something. We're going to look at our results, and then we're going to draw our conclusions and say, ooh, my hypothesis was totally wrong, or ooh, my hypothesis was right. And then we are going to report the results. So here's an example. My question is, why are there more great white sharks close to land? I don't know. I live in Connecticut near Cape Cod, and there are a lot more great white sharks being seen close to land than there used to be. And I want to know why. So I need to do some background research. I'm going to look either on the internet using reliable sources or in textbooks or scientific journals, and I'm going to do some research on great white sharks. I'm going to look to see if there were any previous studies like this. And I'm going to do some research on the predators and prey of great white sharks. I'm then going to construct my hypothesis. That is my best guess. Based on my research, based on what I already know being a scientist, what is my best guess? And my best guess is that great white sharks come close to land to eat. Now the cool thing is, this may not be Eric's best guess. He may think that the great white sharks come close to land because there are fewer predators. And Jamie may think that great white sharks come close to land because they like to play in the waves. Okay, Lizzie may think that great white sharks come close to land because they like to rub their stomachs on the sand. And these are all perfectly legitimate hypotheses. It just needs to be what you think. So now I have to test. I'm going to make some observations. Maybe I'm going to go out in a boat and I'm going to try to find these great white sharks that keep coming close to land. So I'm going to try to monitor their activity. I might use video cameras, or I might use tracking devices. The picture up here is a picture of a tracking device used on large marine animals. On the bottom, do you see that black, looks like a wire with a white fish hook on the end? That gets inserted into the shark or whales or seals or sea turtle skin. And then the rest of the tag kind of floats up behind it. Every time the little antenna on the tag breaks through the surface, it sends some information to a satellite, which then sends it to a computer. So I did my research, I did my experiment, I got my data. It might be a table, a graph, a line graph, it might be some numbers. And I'm going to think about it. Now, scientists spend days, weeks, months, years analyzing their results. This is usually the longest part of the process. And now I'm going to draw conclusions. My conclusion after looking at my data for 2 years is that great white sharks come close to land to follow prey like seals. And I have to give more reasons here. I would have to stop. And I think, whew, was my hypothesis true or false? Well, mine was true, but yours might have been false, which is fine. Does not have to be correct. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write a scientific paper explaining my results. Oop. All right, now we're going to go back a little bit here. And you guys are going to practice the scientific method. So I put your whiteboards up again. I'm going to make it so you can write on them. And you are going to come up with a question and a possible hypothesis. So I want a question and a hypothesis about a marine problem. So I don't want to hear a hypothesis about your dog. I want to hear a hypothesis about the ocean or a brackish area of water. Something about something marine that would be considered marine biology. So here's could be my question. I'm going to go right here and I'm going to put, and this font is kind of small, so I'm going to do question. How old do how long do seals stay with mom? And my hypothesis is going to be I think seals stay with mom for 2 years. And I'm going to think in my head how I could make an experiment out of this. So go ahead and write down your question and a hypothesis. And think about what you could do for an experiment. And if you guys could go ahead and put your names too, that would be great. All right, they all look great so far. If yours isn't up here yet, go ahead and get it up. All right, I'm going to give you 2 more minutes. Go ahead, Victoria.
I figured out my problem. It was something with the text.
Oh, okay. Perfect. All right, so we're going to go ahead and look at some of our ideas here. So I have how long do seals stay with mom? My hypothesis is that I think they stay for 2 years. I really have no idea. But in my head, I can think, how would I figure this out? I would go observe a seal colony so I could figure it out. So let's see, Eric, would you like to share yours with us and then maybe what you could think of for an experiment? Or would anyone like to volunteer? Go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like to volunteer to share what you wrote with us and maybe what your experiment might be. Anyone? Well, I do. All right, go ahead, Victoria.
Well, for mine it was, do fish travels to different bodies of water, or do all fish? And I think, well, yes, but because I know salmon do travel to their rivers when they're laying eggs, so maybe other fish, and I could observe other fish to see if my hypothesis is right.
Awesome, good job. That would be a good experiment to test your hypothesis. Does anyone else want to share theirs with us? There are some very good ones up here on the whiteboard. Anyone interested in sharing? Okay, fair enough. I see a couple up here that I would like to share. So I see one that says, how fast can a sea turtle swim? Maybe around 30 miles per hour to get away from predators. In my head, I can think of an experiment that I might do. Maybe my experiment would be to put a tag on some sea turtles and test, get the data, and figure it out, calculate how fast they're going. Okay, I also see how fast can a shark swim, and the hypothesis of 2 miles per hour. Same thing, we could get some tags on them and do some calculating. I see how do sea turtles eat jellyfish without being stung, and the hypothesis is I think they have a special part of their mouth that helps them not to get, I'm assuming, stung. All right, that would be actually a much trickier experiment to set up, because you would have to figure out why the sea turtle's not getting stung. So that would be part biology and part marine biology. You'd have to really look at the internal structure of those sea turtles. We have how long can a dolphin stay underwater? And the hypothesis is I think dolphins can stay underwater for about 20 minutes. We could do some observations by getting on a boat for this one. We could also do some tags for this one. And then I see how long does a seal pup need its mom to learn how to hunt? A hypothesis of 2 to 3 years. Again, I have no idea on this one. So we would have to go ahead and make some observations. So great job on that and making those observations and learning how to use the scientific method. So now we're going to start concentrating on marine biology. And why is marine biology important to learn about? Well, the oceans cover 71% of the Earth's surfaces, or the Earth's surface. So it's the majority of the surface of the Earth is marine oceans. Only 5% of the oceans have been explored. The oceans are very difficult to explore for several reasons. They are hard to explore because they're away from land, which is where we live. They are very deep. How many oceans are there? I'd like to know what you guys think. So I am going to go ahead and put a question out to you all. How many oceans are there? I'd like you to go ahead and make your guess. All right, so go ahead and make your guess as to how many oceans there are. Sorry about that, guys. All right, I see some correct answers and I see some incorrect answers. The correct answer was 5. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and look at that. Here are the 5 oceans. We have the Arctic Ocean up on top. We have the Atlantic Ocean in the center of this screen. We have the Pacific Ocean on the far left and the far right. We have the Southern Ocean on the bottom. And we have the Indian Ocean in the middle. Okay, and how is marine biology studied? We just discussed this. Above sea level, we have trawls, plankton nets, which can get phytoplankton and zooplankton. And below sea level, we have ROVs, which are remotely operated vehicles, and undersea labs like Aquarius. Next, we are going to go ahead and take a look at some ocean zones. The zones of the ocean are based on 3 things. They are based on light, temperature, and pressure. On the top layer of the ocean, we have what is called the euphotic zone. This is a layer of the ocean that is closest to the surface. It goes down about 50 meters, and this layer of the ocean gets lots of sunlight, so photosynthesis can occur here. The temperatures are very warm. There are some species that use counter shading, which means they have a dark top side and a light underside, so it's very hard for predators to see. And I'll show you some of these pictures in a minute. Species in the euphotic zone include different types of seaweeds, sharks, tuna fish, jellyfish, sea turtles, seals, and dolphins. Yes. Here's a picture of a green sea turtle and a whale shark. If you look at a green sea turtle or a whale shark, the top of the animal is dark and the belly or the underside of the animal is light. Some other organisms that live in the euphotic zone are kelp and coral. Kelp is a type of seaweed. Giant kelp forests where seals live. And corals also need sunlight just like the kelp do, so that can photosynthesize. A stingray would also be in the euphotic zone. Great job. The next zone, the middle layer of the ocean, is called the baffle zone. The baffle zone is also called the twilight zone. The baffle zone is between 50 and 2,000 meters in depth. The temperatures in this area are cooler, and there's an increased amount of pressure, which means the weight or the forces pushing on the animals is higher. There are no plants in this area because there is no sunlight. Animals have very thin bodies that are red or black to blend in with dark waters. Some animals make their own light in this area. This is called bioluminescence. And two examples of fish in this area are viperfish and hatchetfish. And here's a picture of both viperfish and hatchetfish. The abyssal zone is the bottom zone. The bottom zone of the ocean is very cold and very dark. Pressure in this area can be up to 2 tons per square inch. There are very few organisms that exist here and absolutely no plants. Most organisms have gaps to ingest food, not a mouth like you would think of an animal with a mouth. And species like deep-sea anglerfish or giant squid live in this area, which goes from about 2,000 meters all the way to the bottom of the ocean. Here's a picture of 2 organisms that live in the abyssal zone, some worms and a gopher eel. Now we're going to take a little quiz here. And here we have an organism. It's a type of seaweed. It's actually kelp. Where would I live? I want you to answer. I'm going to send you a poll. In the abyssal zone, in the basal zone, or in the euphotic zone. I'm waiting for one more answer. All right, the euphotic zone. Awesome. You all got that correct. Now I have a deep sea squid. Where would I live? And you're going to get the same choices. You're going to have the abyssal zone. You're going to have the basal zone. And you are going to have the euphotic zone. Where do I live? The abyssal zone, the basal zone, or the euphotic zone? Perfect. In the abyssal zone. Awesome. Great job. Now we have one more of these. We have this darling little creature here. Where would I live? In the abyssal zone, in the basal zone, or in the euphotic zone? Where would this sea lion live? Oops. Awesome. The euphotic zone is correct. Great job, guys. Okay, now before we run out of time in class, there's a few things that I would like to make sure I show you. So I need to stop my video, and I'm going to share my screen with you. So you are going to see what I am seeing on my screen, and there were a couple of questions last week about where exactly your homework is. So I want to go ahead and show you so we don't have any problems and everyone can be successful. So in a second, you should see a screen that looks like what your course looked like when you logged in. Someone could go ahead and give me a thumbs up or write in the text chat just so I know that you are seeing the correct screen. Awesome. All right, thank you very much, guys. So what you see right now is your course screen. If you scroll down a little bit, there is in blue with a check mark next to it an assignment that says orientation assignment. That was where your assignment was for the orientation. If you did not get a chance to do it, if you could go ahead and do it, that would be fantastic. I would like to know what the name is you'd like to be called. For example, if your name is Joshua and you want to be called Josh, I want to know that so that we're all comfortable in class. I also would like to know what your favorite marine animal is so that I can go ahead and make sure that we include that in our talking. Now, as I just scrolled down, your homework for this week, here we see week 1. This is what we did in class today. We looked at these PowerPoints. We looked at these pictures. And then you see an assignment with a check next to it that says Ocean Worksheet. On your syllabus, it said Ocean Worksheet was your homework for tonight. Well, guess what? You're not going to do any worksheets because you can't turn them into me. So we're going to do electronic worksheets. So what you need to do is you need to click Ocean Worksheet. And yours will look a little different than mine. It says quiz, but your assignment's going to come right up. And it's going to have questions. How many oceans are there? Name the ocean you live close to. You're going to match the animal with the correct ocean zone. And then you're going to describe the scientific method in a paragraph. When you're done, there's going to be a submit button. So you are going to submit it to me. And then I'm going to grade it. So at first, these first 2 questions, you'll probably get a grade for. So it might say 2 out of 10. Don't get nervous. I have to go in and read the rest of your answers. So you will get a better grade than what you originally are told. So please don't get nervous. Okay? But that is where your homework is. If you're having trouble with your login, your username, your password, go ahead, give me a call, send me an email, and we can go ahead and talk you through it. Does anyone have any questions about anything that we talked about today in class? Go ahead, Victoria.
Is there any way to rewatch a lesson in case you forget something?
That is a fantastic question. And yes, there is. I record every session that we do as a class, and then I'm going to put it up on that website we were just at, our Moodle website, and under week 1, it'll say week 1 recording. It normally won't be up there until the next morning because it takes a lot of time to upload the video on the internet that I have. So it will definitely be up there by tomorrow morning. So usually I upload the videos overnight and then I put them up the next morning. Great question. Anyone else have a question? All right, well, I hope you guys have a great day. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to give me a call or send me an email. And I will see you next week in week 2 of marine biology. Have a fantastic